free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. Today I'm joined by three of my favorite people on the planet. It's a great day to be me. I'm joined by my co-host, Julie Fudge Smith, by Ms. Zazie Todd, author extraordinaire, and by my dear friend, Colleen Pelar, someone I can always lean on. And today is kind of a special episode. Today is the last full-time episode that Julie will be doing with us. And so we wanted to take a quick look back at how the episode began, how the podcast began, where we've been, where we're headed, and also to just celebrate this amazing podcast that is the Your Family Dog podcast. So I'm sad that Julie is going to leave the full-time team, but I am glad that she has already said she would be willing to come back and visit from time to time. And you could just pray for me because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna let Zazie start.
Well, I was just gonna say, this is an assumption that any of us know what we're doing. I mean,
Indeed.
You said they don't know what you're doing. I think that's an odd assumption that the rest of us do. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Anyway, hi, Zazie. Thank you for
Hello. I feel very honored to be here. And I have to say, every single time I've been invited on this podcast, because I've been invited on a few times, going back a long way to when Colleen was co-host as well, I'm always absolutely thrilled because I think this is such a wonderful podcast and you are so much fun to chat with. And I think it is always magic. Maybe none of us do know what we're doing, but that's kind of how the magic happens because we just all have such wonderful conversations. And when it comes to talking about dogs, we're all on the same page. You know, we love dogs so much. We have the same approach to understanding dogs and what they need and therefore what their guardians need. And last night I looked through just the long list of all of the episodes that you've done and all of the different topics that you've covered. And there is such a wealth of information there, so much useful information for people if they want to know more about their dog on a whole range of different topics, including one you did recently on, I forget the word, something I'd never heard of before, some mold-like organism that we have to worry about in water.
We were talking about pitheosis.
That's right. And I was like, see, I can still be learning things from your podcast, which is amazing. So I think, you know, it's kind of a sad thing that you're retiring because this has been so, so wonderful. But you definitely deserve to retire and to have a wonderful time in the future. And you can keep listening if you want to. And I'm just so grateful that you made this podcast and that you invited me to be on it some of the time too.
It's humbling. Right? Julie's really built an amazing thing. And I know I'm grateful to have been a part of it. You've expressed you are. I know Colleen is. I will always remember the conversation I had with Colleen where she was like, hey, so I'd like you to come and try to do this podcast thing. And I was like, no. Right. And now it's a Wednesday I always look forward to. So Colleen, do you have anything you'd like to say? Quiet person back in the corner.
Oh, well, I think this whole thing exists because of Julie, because Julie contacted me a bazillion years ago and said, would you like to podcast with me? And I said, no. I said, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't know what podcasts are. I would be too uncomfortable. And besides, I don't have anything to offer. And as you can see, Julie is persuasive, because I did agree to do a podcast with her. And I now do a different one all by myself. But for someone who thought she didn't even know what podcasts were, it was quite an introduction into the world. So Julie has been, gosh, I wish I had been smart like Zazie and done some research. Julie's been in my life a long, long time. Julie, how long has it been?
Let's see. Well, it started with All About Dogs.
Yeah.
And that would have been 2002. 2, I think it was, when we first came with Molly, when she had so many problems. Because we had to put her down in 2003, and I'd been with so it's like 2001, 2002.
So
And then I joined the staff at All About Dogs in 2003, and you were my training manager. So,
it's been a while.
It's been a while. That's what, 22 years?
And dog training continues to grow and evolve in so many new, exciting ways since then. I recently adopted a reactive dog, and for a bazillion years, I taught reactive dog classes at All About Dogs. And the techniques they're using now are even better. I'm so happy. I am completely out of my depth. I don't know a bit of what I'm doing in class. I have not told them that I ever trained a dog before because it might be embarrassing. But the reality is, isn't it exciting to have this kind of experience where dog trainers get together regularly to talk about what they know that hasn't changed and what they know that's coming and all the changes and how things are moving forward? And so Your Family Dog has been an exciting piece of that. And I thank you, Julie, for even thinking of it, and for all of the amazing people who participated. Tina, who I kind of coerced into becoming a co-host, and Zazie, who joined us so many times. And Zazie's particular gift is, of course, distilling all that scientific information in a way that I can understand it. So thank you, Zazie, because the research is important, but I don't want to read it.
Yes, that's very kind
for
of you.
doing all the hard stuff. Yes.
I read it so you don't have to.
I am grateful. And then Family Dog is a place you can explain it.
There's a whole community that's grateful, Zazie.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Just that that I can get really great information to the families I love and serve without spending my whole life with a dictionary and my brain oozing out of my ears because I'm trying to read things I don't understand and trying to vet them. So I love, 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 love the service that you provide to all of us.
Thank you very much. And isn't it wonderful, though, that there are so many people like you who are interested in this stuff and who want to tell other people about it and who want to use that information to make dogs' lives better and dog guardians' lives better. And that's what keeps me going, because I think that's just wonderful. And you do such a good service to people with this podcast of sharing so much amazing information and all the lovely stories that you share about your own dogs or dogs you've worked with as well, that helps people to see for themselves and to kind of understand. And those stories are so important as well. And that's one of the other things that I always love about this podcast.
Well, we are never afraid to say that we messed up. I think I just, made more mistakes and I've done things right. But Colleen, I was going to say there's this wonderful book by a woman I know called Bark. And it's all about reactive dogs, and you might want to check that out. And we did a podcast on it, I believe. I think the author is Zazie Todd.
Really?
So, it's an amazing
She seems
book.
to know her stuff.
Does
Yeah,
she?
she really does. And she takes all this scientific stuff and makes it like eminently readable. So you might want to check out Bark. It's a great book. And certainly check out her podcast. You've been wondering what I've been looking for. I've been looking for my copy of Bark. It's around here somewhere in this great mess that's called my office. I was going to say, it is a great book. And, it's funny because this morning I was working with my trainer and I was telling her that we were doing this last podcast. And I said, and Zazie, who was my favorite guest, not that I didn't love all our guests. I did. I love all of our guests. But Zazie holds a special place in my heart. And I said the reason for it is because her books are just top-notch, top to bottom. And I told her about Wag, and I told her about Purr, and I told her about Bark. And even for me, who is not really a cat person, Purr was great. I really enjoyed Purr. So from a non-cat person, although I have 4 grandcats, so and I do grow catnip for my grandcats, and I dry it and I make them little catnip pouches for Christmas for my grandcats. And apparently, because I gave some to my trainer, it's really top-notch catnip. So for those of you who have cats, I will be happy to send you our catnip. Apparently, it's very good. I'm not a cat, so it's only secondhand. I've got this testimony. But I was going to say, Colleen, when it was I called you, it was March of 2016. when I called you about the podcast. So just about how many years is that? Something like 9, 8 years ago?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And your first episode was released on October 4th about managing mealtime madness with our dogs. And it was this today was actually the first time I listened to that original podcast recording. And I was just tickled pink that so much is the same, right? Like identify where there's a point of conflict or struggle or just being a little uncomfortable, and then explaining that to quote Colleen, stop is not a behavior. Right? Kinder words have never been spoken, right? So and so it was identify what you don't want, identify what you do want, and then manage and train. Yay. That's always going to be the theme. So Julie, will you talk about the origin of the Your Family Dog podcast?
Yeah, it's what I would say is that I had been listening to a few podcasts, and one day I just woke up and went, I need to do a podcast with Colleen Pelar on dogs. I mean, that was all there was to it. It was like, and I really think that we should do it because I don't know if there's anything out there, and we can talk about, dogs and their problems. And I certainly can't do this myself because I'm not talented enough as a trainer. I need somebody who's more talented than I and who's more experienced. And Colleen is such a compassionate and person with a great deal of understanding and ability to explain things in a way that people can understand. And I thought we need probably my energy and Colleen's compassion. So I called her and said, Colleen, we need to do a podcast. And she said, no, we don't. No, I don't do that. I said, I knew you were going to say that because you always say that. Every time I suggest something to you, you always say no first. And so I'm not.
What a good friend I am. No.
So I'm not going to take that as your final answer, Regis. So that cannot be your final answer. I think you need to think about this.
And
so
she learned from you because she really didn't accept my no either. And I didn't listen to podcasts or know what they were or have any idea why anyone would want to listen to me prattle on or that I had anything at all worthwhile to offer. So now we know that legacy continues.
And at the time when I talked to Colleen, we didn't have a name for it. I said, she said, well, what are we going to talk about? I said, we're going to talk about dogs. We're going to talk about families. And, because one of your specialties is kids. And I think we can do a lot with kids and families and dogs and stuff. And I think it was Colleen who came up with Your Family Dog. I think you're the one who came up with the final name. I don't remember. It's lost in the annals in the mists of time. Indeed. But I think it was Colleen and we agreed. And Colleen was also the smart one who said, let's do a contract. Let's make sure that the terms of our contract are really clear so that when I decide to bail on you, it will be clear. And I would say to anybody who's considering a podcast with a host, it's a great idea. Spell it out in the beginning, what the expectations are on each one of you. And how is it you're going to exit if one of you wants to exit so that there is no hard feelings at the end. And as much as I was saddened to have Colleen leave the podcast because I had so enjoyed it, I also understood that she'd moved on to another point in her life and that Your Family Dog was not a part and parcel of what she wanted to do anymore. And so as painful as that was to have my Tina calls her my first podcast wife, divorce me. Bringing Tina in brought a whole new energy and dimension to Your Family
and
Dog.
Expertise.
Oh my goodness, yes. So far beyond anything that I had. I remember Colleen and I both saying, we feel like frauds. We're total frauds here. But having Tina was kind of like I no longer felt like I was committing fraud. That Tina, her years and years and years of expertise was really wonderful to have. So
I tell
And
people all the time, the only reason I have any good advice is that I've screwed it up worse than you had and had to fix it. Like, I'm not some sort of magic. I'm just somebody who's had a lot of dogs and screwed it up spectacularly well in the past.
yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. A huge mistake I made early on in my when we first moved here to Ohio in 2005. I took off a year to train my own dog and renovate a house. But in 2006, I started my own business, and it was probably 2007, 2008. I would not give the same counsel to that woman that I gave to her then. And sometimes it's hard to remember I did the best I could at the time. What I know now and what I've seen as far as with aggression in dogs and treatability of it, I probably would not have given the same advice. And so part of my heart breaks every time I think about, as you were saying, Colleen, there's so much more information out there and so many new techniques. If I'd only known, I would make things differently, do things differently. But that's part and parcel of, I guess, the human experience.
I think it's like that for everyone because so much has changed. I mean, the whole landscape around us of dog training has changed, fortunately for the better, in that more people are using reward-based methods to train their dog. But also, when we think about what we know about socialization, people didn't used to know much about how they had to socialize their puppies, and yet that makes such a big difference. And these days, so many more people are aware of that. And then also, if you think about the veterinary aspect of it, we know now that we need to refer people to a vet or say maybe you should talk to your vet about whether your dog is in pain. And we also know increasingly that perhaps if we have a fearful or anxious dog, we need to say, well, maybe you should just talk to your vet about this, because we can't say what the vet will do because we're not veterinarians, but we can say just have a chat with your vet and maybe the vet will want to prescribe medication or something like that. And that's another resource that's available to us. And that's made a huge difference too. And so many things have changed. And I think that the important thing is that all of us are always learning and we are willing to change when things need to change. And it makes such a big difference. And it makes such a big difference that you have kept telling people about all these things as well. So in turn, you have helped lots of other people learn that actually we can do things differently now and we can do so much better.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, Zazie. So, one thing I wanted to ask Tina. Tina, what has been your favorite episode of Your Family Dog, if you have one? Of course, including the fact, I mean, let's just say without, I mean, the three from Zazie and the ones with Colleen. Okay. Other than those, do you have a favorite episode or one that springs to mind is like, holy cow, that was one wild ride?
So there's one that I don't even know if we released it, that the guest decided to call in from the car.
Yeah. We actually
did we release it? That one, I
did.
was like, okay, we're changing the rules because that was a bad, but as far as like, and it would have been a really great episode. The recording was awful because of technical stuff.
Well, what happened with that episode actually was we did release it, but then I got some emails from people saying, you don't understand who this person really is. She is quite controversial here in California. And I went, okay, fine. Between the recording.
Did we pull it down?
Pulled it. It hasn't been.
So, and we
up
can
for about a week.
And you can cut that out if you want to. Like, I'm fine with that. But so it's and I'm not going to remember his name because I'm terrible with names except Zazie and Colleen. But it's.
Well, you remember mine. That's kind of good.
I remember yours, right? So it was the stem cell.
Yes.
Research one. I could listen to that scientist. He's so sweet. I could listen to him talk for days. And I'm so excited about the research he's doing, not just for our animals, but for us. And that he's really shoving the world in a spectacularly beautiful direction.
Yeah, I remember.
And I'm going to go and look up what his name is because now I feel bad.
I think he was from Texas, if I remember correctly. But anyway, yes. Okay, that was good. Okay, Colleen, do you have a memorable episode
The one that's coming to mind was I believe we did separate episodes where we did like 5 favorite things.
Yeah.
And one of mine, when I did mine, I didn't tell you in advance what my things were. And I don't remember what all 5 were, but I remember 2 were a carabiner, of which I have one on my desk at this moment, and a plastic water bottle. And I remember you just being like, "So, among your favorite pieces of dog training equipment are a carabiner and a plastic water bottle." But what I was kind of hoping for at that time was just sort of say, like, we use what's in front of us. We're always creatively setting
Right.
up our environment for success. And I use the water bottle. I actually cut the end off the water bottle and use it as a funnel for filling toys. By the way, the toy market, so much better these days.
Oh.
I am shopping for all sorts of amazing, fun toys that were not there when I was stuffing a water bottle into this, but I digress. But the idea of dog training is you don't actually need all the fancy things. You can get by with what's in your house and being creative within that. And also, there are some really amazing fancy things that are out there. But I just recall you saying a carabiner and a water bottle. Like, okay, these are your favorite things. And I stick with it. Well, the water bottle has fallen off the list because, again, it's much easier to fill dog treats now, toys and treats. But carabiners, I use them every day, all day with dogs in so many different ways.
Well, I'm happy that you found a lasting dog training tool in the carabiner.
Thank
I have to
heavens.
say, yeah, and my lasting thing would be saying stop, which I know is not a behavior, but anyway.
Stop is not a big. So, do you have a favorite episode that you can recall?
Boy, there's a lot of them. I remember I enjoyed the Patricia McConnell episodes that we did. She's an excellent guest, and we were talking about the Re-Education of Will, which is an excellent book, and I enjoyed that one quite a bit. There has we had one another one, a couple that I really liked was with Dr. Mike Morales when he talked about the canine physiology and endocrinology, which I really like technical stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the endocrinology of dogs, and he's a good friend. Well, my sister had some interesting insights with kids and dogs, and so it was fun to have Sarah on a few times. I think Tina was very enthusiastic about my sister and is trying to, I think, recruit her as a podcast host, perhaps. So, but there's really so many of them. I think one of the things that I find amazing about this podcast is the number of times Tina and I have shown up and go, "What are you going to talk about? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I don't know." And somehow or another, we come up with a topic and we come up with a podcast. And I think that is an amazing thing to me. And that is a real gift from the Lord that we can actually produce these things over and over again when we come into it with not a whole lot there. But I credit a lot of that to Tina and her experience and her ongoing training, because I retired from training a few years ago, so now I'm retiring from podcasting, at least for now, and so I am very grateful for Tina and her ongoing witness to dog training, and I think one of the things that I like the most about Your Family Dog is we don't have any pretensions to be anything more than what we are. And I think that might be part of our success. Colleen, I don't think you and I had any pretensions that we were going to be the most brilliant dog training podcast on the planet. We just thought we'd talk to people about their dogs. And I remember it was you who somebody said to you, "Gosh, I feel like it's just sitting around the kitchen table talking dogs." And I think that became our theme, is that we just want to be sitting around the kitchen table talking dogs. And Zazie, you certainly have been able to do that. You've jumped right in with all the craziness and the interruptions that Tina and I do all the time to one another. You just with the flow.
I've always been very lucky to join you, but that's just what it feels like. It just feels like a group of friends sitting around the kitchen table talking about dogs and dog training. And I think that's the charm of the show, and that's what makes it so relatable for people who are listening as well. And it's just a really, really nice, makes it have a very warm and cozy feeling, even when you're talking about some of the more difficult topics around dogs as well. So yeah, I think that's important. And I was thinking as you were talking, I would say for my favorite episode, I have not heard all of them, I'm afraid, but one of my favorite episodes is actually the one with Dr. Patricia McConnell talking about the education of Will, because I love that book, and it's a very moving book, and I think that's a very moving conversation that you had with her as well. So that, and I just love everything that she does. So that would be one of my favorites too.
Yeah, she's a great guest, and if anybody gets a chance to see any kind of an interview with her, not necessarily with us, but with anybody, watch it. I learn something from every time I either go to a seminar with her or I see her on a podcast or something. She's just an amazing, amazing person who has done an incredible amount of stuff with her life and for dogs. She's got an amazing story to tell, so she's well worth listening to.
She's a lovely, lovely, kind person too.
Oh, she is.
Which is wonderful. There's so many lovely, kind people in this world. I think it's really interesting. Every now and then when I go to a conference, my husband will be like, well, what are you guys going to talk about for 5 days? And I'm like, dogs. And he's like, yeah, but like after the first day, what are you going to talk about? And I'm like, no, dogs. And when you look at this podcast of years and years and years of conversations about dogs, there's no desire to stop, which is kind of funny on Julie's retirement episode, but like the conversations continue. The conversations will always continue. Julie will be she will be talking about dogs for the rest of her life. She won't be podcasting about dogs for the rest of her life. But the four of us here have a real passion for dogs. And I think that most people who love dogs have such a passion for dogs that they are up for another conversation about dogs, which is kind of awesome and amazing. So Tina, I'm curious, what do you see ahead for your family dog? What comes next? How are the conversations going to continue?
I think Julie and I in the last year have made pretty big push to incorporate lots of different facets. So we've had veterinary nutritionists on, and we've had lots of scientists on talking about research. And lots of people who are coming at something for maybe a little bit different direction, that it's like, oh, okay, that I want to hear more about that. So I think that's all going to continue. I am thinking that we're probably going to have a Patreon at some point, and that we're probably going to add a video component at some point. But that means that I have to lose 130 pounds and learn how to do my hair and makeup. So it'll be a minute. But it is like sitting around the kitchen table and talking, and I think that that's great. But what do they say? Like 75% of statistics are wrong. No, just kidding. That like a bunch of communication is nonverbal. Mm-hmm. And we do sometimes tackle subjects that I think there would be a swirl of difference if people could see how the communication is happening, and the compassion and all the funny faces we all make and all the goofy that happens in the background. I do think that there are some people, not all, I don't think I'll ever get rid of like the podcast part where you don't have to look at us. But I think it's good. I think the podcast will morph over time to maybe have some different presentations to meet whichever audience is interested where they are.
I think that all sounds great, Tina. I was thinking, somebody's like, well, why do you want to leave? And I'm like, well, I've been here since 2016. So I've been doing this podcast for 9 some odd years. And it's time for me to move on to do some other things. And Colleen's right. I will never stop loving dogs. I will never stop talking about dogs. In fact, when I was in Kyrgyzstan last year, or was it 2 years ago? Anyway, I guess it was 2 years ago. It doesn't matter. When we were in Kyrgyzstan, I was standing on top of this hill and I looked down and there was a guy working his dog with some horses and sheep. And so I pointed out to the guy sitting next to me, I said, "Do you see that?" And I was talking about how, the way the dog is moving is because of the way the signals he's giving him. And I'm just telling him about how dogs herd and so on and so forth. And he looked at me and I'm like, "I'm on vacation." And he goes, "Boy, you know more about dogs than anybody I've ever met." And I said, "You haven't met my podcast partner." And, but it was one of those things I realized it's always there and I will always love it. But it's time for me to let go of this particular thing and to move on to the next thing. I mean, I'm working on my second novel. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. Thank you, Zazie.
I'm clapping because I love your first novel so much, and if anyone is listening and they haven't read it, you should get The Beast Keepers by Julie, and it's a really interesting and novel and fun and beautifully written book, and I could not put it down, and I absolutely loved it.
Oh,
So
well,
I'm
thank
very
you.
pleased there's another one coming.
Yes, only it's not a sequel and it's not a prequel. It's a completely different adventure. It's about a grandfather and his son. Although there are animals in it, and there's a little bit of fantasy too. I mean, there's a purse that has very deep feelings, and there's a window that's very brave. It's the brave little window, and it actually protects a little boy by shattering. So there's lots of interesting features going on, and there's a few animals, but it's a little autobiographical, a little of a memoir of a grandfather and his grandson. But anyway, so I've got that to do, and Brad is retiring. My husband's retiring at the end of this academic year. In fact, this week is his last week of classes that he will teach. And so we've got travel plans. And I've got, as everybody on this podcast will know, I have 9 grandchildren. I just spent 10 days making 4 Easter dresses. So there's plenty ahead for me. It's not that I'm retiring from life. I'm just moving into the next direction. So in fact, Brad and I just figured out our travel for next year. We're going to go to Botswana. And then we're also going up to the Northwest Territories to do some rafting in the Northwest Territories of Canada. So it's time.
And you'll come back and visit, right?
They have to pay me. I would, yes.
Well, there's no budget for that.
Yeah, there's like no budget. So yes, I will definitely come back. And Tina, I think that you're the person to take it forward. While this may have been originally my idea, I would not. If Tina had said no, she didn't want it, I would have shut it down. There's nobody else I would have turned it over to. So I feel very comfortable with Tina taking it in the next direction. So it's kind of a happy, sad day for me, but it's time. It's kind of like when I left dog training. I left when I felt a little bit like Seinfeld, leave when you're on top. I left dog training when I still looked forward to a certain degree to dog training. I didn't want to leave when I was at the point where I'm like, oh, please call and cancel, please call and cancel, please cancel your appointment. Right. And I felt the same way with the podcast. I wanted to leave while I still enjoyed it, while I still thought it was a worthwhile endeavor, before I really started to resent it or to like, I don't want to do this anymore. Please stop making me. I didn't want to get to that point. I don't think that serves anybody, especially the audience that you are trying to serve. I mean, I didn't think I could serve my clients as a trainer if I got to the point where I really resented having to go train your dog. I just wanted your money. That's not going to work for anybody. And I didn't want to leave the podcast at a point where I really didn't want to do it anymore. I just kind of thought I owed it to myself as well as to our audience to give them the best I can for as long as I can. And then it was time to move on. So
you've dispelled the rumor that I drove you away.
I had no idea there were rumors about you driving me away.
No, because it's a funny thing, right? Like I've had people go, well, why is she leaving? And I was like, honestly, when she retired from dog training, I thought she probably was going to start being done with the podcast. Right? Because I mean, so much of the inspiration of what we talk about is interrelated to day and living and working with families with dogs, that I thought, well, maybe she's gonna say, okay, we're done with that too. And it didn't happen. So
She only hoped it was going to happen.
I didn't. Like, I love having you here. All I have to do is show up. Now that changes. Now I got to do a whole bunch of shiz. And I have to learn a whole bunch of stuff and wear a bunch of hats that don't fit me very well. But I'll figure it out, and it'll be a learning curve, and that's okay. Hopefully everyone will forgive me while it's happening.
Yeah, well, I haven't completely. I mean, I did leave all the engineering stuff to my daughter still.
You did.
She can
Thank
still do it.
goodness.
Yes, and she engineers Colleen's podcast as well.
Oh, very
And-
cool.
Yeah, and I left you with a web designer who can help you with the web
Who's
page.
amazing.
Wendy, yeah, she is. And if I can, for the life of me, I cannot figure out how to give you the administration of the Facebook page. I don't know how to do it. I guess
We're going to have to try to figure it out.
yes, I think what I need to do is maybe like take you off of it completely and then bring you on and give you full access. I don't know.
Okay.
Facebook has been helpful.
We'll figure it out.
If anybody out there can tell me how I can change the administration of the Facebook page, please email us at what are we emailing now? Your family dog
yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, please let me know how I'm supposed to do this because I'm clueless.
Because we don't know. We're just doing the best we can. So looking forward, like, we're poor people who have a passion about this. What do you guys want or wish? Julie, what do you wish for the podcast moving forward? What are your dreams for it?
Okay, put me on the spot. Thank you, Tina. I guess
I mean, it's my last opportunity.
I guess what I would like to see it move forward is I would like to see it become increasingly a place of information for things that people may not know they actually need the information for. I mean, I kind of think like the stem cell guy and the pitheosis, and we talked about bird flu, and Zazie's book Bark, which I think most people don't realize that they probably need, that they do, because everybody has a reactive dog to one degree or another. I think that there are a lot of people out there talking about training, and I think that we can continue to talk about training, but training in how it relates to what we've always talked about is relationship. I think keeping the idea of what you really have with your dog is a relationship, and that's what you need to be nurturing, because if you have a really solid, positive relationship, training is actually pretty easy. And so I think the idea of continuing how to build relationships, how to incorporate the information that is out there about training and management and stuff into building that relationship, as well as providing information for our owners that they may not be able to get elsewhere, like pitheosis and bird flu and canine endocrinology, and the origin of the dog, which we did. Colleen's dog has arrived. Oh, is he the cutest thing on the planet or what?
Yeah, jumping up on my chair because we all have perfectly trained dogs.
Oh my goodness, he is so cute.
He's
Okay.
very,
Adorable.
very cute.
Oh my.
And I gave him a long-lasting chew to get through a podcast. And he says, we've talked enough. Apparently, we've finished his chew.
He's a good boy.
Oh, he is what a face. Oh my heavens. Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute.
How are things going with the separation anxiety?
We can do 12 minutes now.
Woohoo! Wow.
We're
I am having the experience. I tell people regularly that from the dog trainer perspective, I give myself the biggest gold star. Like, yay, you. And from the perspective of the person living with this animal and doing all the things, I'm like, holy cow, this is hard. And it's really interesting to have both experiences. Like I have conversations with myself of like, okay, you're a dog trainer. What's the next step? And then I'm like, okay, here's the next step. And then the part of me that has to do it is like, oh, that feels like a lot.
Yes.
And he's awesome and wonderful, and I adore him, and we're making very good progress slowly.
Well, that's how it's done,
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? It's like dieting. I try to say to people all the time, like, I didn't get fat fast and I'm not going to get skinny fast.
Really, I feel like I got fat real fast, but the skinny part is taking like forever.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I've been in a diet since 1987, so
Yes.
probably not super successful, but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So what about you, Colleen? Like you were there at the beginning.
So at the beginning,
When you think of the Your Family Dog podcast and where it could go and what it could do, what are your hopes and dreams for it?
I think what I would really love is for, and this is happening more and more, for people to see that their dog can provide them some social outlets and activities. Like you could make friends with people in your dog class. You could have fun with your dog in a scent work class or a novelty exploration class. And that ways of incorporating fun activities for your dog can actually fill some needs in your own life. And that the podcast provides opportunities for people to hear about things they never heard about before or to have some new ideas that they hadn't considered. So, yeah, just like your dog doesn't need to be your job, but to look at ways you can incorporate your dog into your life will actually, I think, enrich your life
And the dogs, usually.
and the dogs. Hmm.
That's great, Colleen. I really like that. It reminds me when you're saying scent work. Do you remember when we did the scent work one with Wendy McElroy? And she was talking about training her dog and for one of her dogs is a cadaver dog. And she was talking about we're like, well, you have to have varying degrees of decomposition. And so she was talking about stalking your pregnant friends for their placentas. And I had to cut that out because we're like, this is a family dog podcast. And but that was a memorable moment when she had her freezer. She goes, I have all these placentas in the freezer, and we both were like, in your freezer. She goes, oh, I have a separate freezer for that. And I was like,
So the people who train dogs in human remains are often law enforcement, and they're really funny when you get. Well, I mean, they always have a dark sense of humor, like a dog trainer, anyway. But they were talking about that if you were at a training seminar and you died, they'd use you for a couple 3 days before they called it in, because it's so hard to get decaying human,
yeah, and
as
it's
it
so very
should
different.
be.
Yes, it should be. But
As it should
it's
be.
a lot of people will go to dentists and they'll get teeth because yeah, but yeah. So I didn't mean to, but I was just saying when you're talking about scent work, that reminded me of that particular episode. But Colleen, I think that is a great. Did you write that down, Tina? Because I thought that was great, much better than mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
So it's interesting that and I think this speaks to Zazie a lot. So I can remember way back when in the Wayback Machine that I saw her book club and started to recognize as a part of like the conversation that this push toward enrichment is doing exactly what Colleen's talking about. That it's not just enriching the dog's life, which I think is desperately needed. And I'm praying that one day Kim Brophy will come in and talk about some of these issues of recognizing how life has really changed for our dogs in a way that is probably contributing to some of the behavior problems that we're perceived problems that we're experiencing and how to kind of work on that. But that enrichment very quickly was value added to our lives as well as our dogs. Even from a kids and dogs or grandparents and dogs perspective, that teaching our children from the beginning that our dog is a thinking, feeling, individual with preferences and wants and needs and big feelings about things and likes and dislikes is a big deal. And that they're not just biological machines that are, living stuffed animals. That's not what they are, even though we would sometimes prefer that they were. So I love, Colleen, that I do think that the world is moving in that direction of recognizing, no, this is good for all of us, including the humans. It's not just burdensome.
And
Yeah,
that
I think a
maybe it's
podcast that's fun that way can help people do that, as opposed to like, I should listen to this. But no,
Yeah.
I enjoy listening to this. I want to listen to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to say, I think the very first episode I came and did with Colleen and Julie was about how to make dogs happy. And that was 2017, I think. I was working on WAG, but it was like years before WAG actually got published. So you have been at the forefront. You're actually one of the first podcasts I've been on. You've been at the forefront, really, of that recognition that dogs are sentient, that they do have feelings, that we do need to pay attention to what they need, and that when we do that, that helps us as the dog guardians as well. And I think that's such an important thing for people to know. And they don't always realize it until they start trying it and they start doing some of these things. And who doesn't love to see a happy dog, basically?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember, I think what we called your very first podcast was Making Happy Dogs Happier. That was what we were looking for. And yeah, we were thrilled to have you. I think I found you through Companion Animal Psychology blog. I was reading
Yes.
your blog and I'm like, we have to have this woman on. And then you were going to write a book. And then it was like, from there, it just was great. So I think although every once in a while, I think that this is going to sound kind of weird, but I think there's also a downside to that. I think this recognition that our dogs are sentient, that our dogs have big feelings, that our dogs are companions is incredibly important and really good. But then you get they stop seeing that dogs are actually animals too. They're not children. And like I was in the Kohl's the other day, and this woman had a baby carrier, but it had a Shih Tzu in it, not a baby. So she could take the dog into Kohl's. And I thought to myself, that's fine. I'm kind of glad that you really like your dog. But the fact is it actually is an animal. And my dogs occasionally will remind me of that. Like when Zuzu brings an opossum in the house, or like this morning, my landscaper is here. He's building some steps for me. And my husband and we're out there. Oh my God, he has this great tool. It's a mini chainsaw. It's only like 8 inches long. And it's so much fun. Anyway, but we were out looking at the mini chainsaw and Zuzu comes up from the creek and Brad's like, what's that on her side? And and it's like probably weasel. I don't know. It was pretty gross. So she got a bath, but it's just this. Every once in a while, I need this reminder that Zuzu is a dog. And as much as I love her and she is like my canine best friend, she's also a dog and needs dog needs, not human needs. And so I think that we also have to, once again, keep perspective on who it is we're actually dealing with, that they're not just furry children. They will do things like bring opossums in the house and roll in dead.
I need to hear that story. So we just encountered a possum the other day on a walk where it was dark, it was night, and all of a sudden Rocky looked up and the possum looked up and I looked up and everybody stopped breathing and then I was like, okay, we're leaving. And that was enough possum for me. So
You do know they're not dangerous to you, Colleen. It's just a possum.
Yeah, I just had actually never seen one 5 feet from me. And so I suddenly
It wasn't a Wolverine.
No, it was not. But I also don't want it in my house. So I'm super curious to hear the story of how Julie discovered that there was a possum in her house,
in the house.
how she handled that. Could you share that with me? Because
we're going to see if all four
I
of
want
us
this
have
to be
possum
vicarious.
stories. I actually have 2 possum stories. Zazie, do you have a possum story?
No, I don't even think we have possums here. So,
Well,
I have like bear stories and things, but not possum stories.
Well, Tina, you could lend one of your opossum stories to Dad.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, what happened was we were out at our cottage. Now, it's important to remember that I had had foot surgery and I'd had minor surgery to remove some of the hardware from my foot. So I was still sort of limpy. Okay. So before we go to bed, I say, come on, girls, time to go out. And we open the door and they go out and they go potty and then they come back in. But Zazie runs out and I hear this. I'm like, oh, this is not good. I said, Zazie, come on in. She comes running in the house and I'm like, what? And I look and she's got a possum and she drops it. So there's a little rug in front of the fireplace. She drops it on the fireplace. So I go, look, Mom, I brought you in the possum. And I'm like, holy cow, is it dead or is it alive? But it turns out it's playing possum, right? So I'm like, Brad is upstairs. He's getting ready for bed. And I'm like, there's a possum. And he was flying down the stairs in his underwear and a t-shirt. And I'm like, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to get you a garbage bag. And here's the shovel from the fireplace andiron, this one of those little shovels. And I'm like,
you weren't like, let me get your pants?
No, and meanwhile, I'm hobbling over to the refrigerator. We'd had meatballs for dinner that night. We had some leftover meatballs. So I'm like, girls, meatballs. And I'm stumbling over to the kitchen. I get the meatballs. I come back and I'm like, oh, girls, look, meatballs. And I'm shoving raw meatballs at the dogs while Brad is trying to shovel the possum into the garbage bag. I said, make sure you leave his head out because we don't know if he's alive or dead. And Brad's like, this shovel is incredibly inadequate for the job because its possum is pretty heavy. So he shovels the thing in, his little head's hanging out, And I'm hobbling. I'm still throwing meatballs. The girls I don't know how many they got, but they got lots of meatballs, by the way, are better apparently than opossums. So anyway, we put the possum outside on the front porch with the bag open and close the door and hope for the best. And by morning, he was gone. And we figured out he was playing possum because at one point he twitched just a little bit because I wasn't sure whether Zuzu had actually killed her or not because she has killed chickens. And apparently when she was living with her breeder, she was one of the sorority sisters. They were all about 16 months old, 15, and they would go out hunting in the backyard, the sorority sisters, at night. And bring back whatever, but no. So, anyway, but it was one of those things where, the first thing that came to mind for me was what's better than an opossum, right? I need to offer my dog something that's better than than an opossum lying on my Scottish rug in front of my fireplace. And I thought, it doesn't matter what it is. It just has to be. So we're not having meatballs tomorrow night for dinner. Dogs are having raw meatballs tonight. And it was one of those things where it's kind of like, it's much more important to me to keep a situation under a certain level of control. Clementine had no idea there was an opossum in the house because she had sort of trotted out when Zuzu trotted in or ran in with the opossum, and then she came back in. By that point, I'm throwing meatballs. So Clementine had no idea that there was an opossum. She just knew that Mommy has gone berserko and is now throwing meatballs. So whatever, I'm in for the meatball game. And so I think it's important to remember, it doesn't matter. So they get some extra raw meat today. That's fine. It's not like I'm serving them meatballs every day. So anyway, that's how we got an opossum in the house.
Colleen, your possum story?
That is my possum story. Rocky and I were startled, period. End of story. That's the most opossum story I would like to have.
And while I was sitting here, I realized I have 3 possum stories. I'll tell the quick one. So a local humane society had Sit Happens provide training services for them at one point. And they do all sorts of wellness visit, low cost services at this particular humane society. And sometimes, even though they caution people not to do it, some people accidentally let their cats out of carriers or bring their cats not in a carrier, and then the cat gets loose, and then they put live animal traps out to trap the cats and catch them. and get them back to the people who love them. Well, I go in to teach one day, and sitting in the middle of the table in their little meeting / snack room is a possum in a live trap. And so I'm me. So I go in, and I think I had to take somebody a check or paperwork or something. And I did that. And as I was walking through, I said, kind of out of the side of my face, I thought, being obviously humorous, that is the ugliest cat I have ever seen. And the staff were like, no, that's not a cat. Like, they were and I was like, y'all, you've been here too long. I know that's not a kitty. I was making a joke, but that was one of my possum stories. So I like possums. Yeah, I have a lot of possum stories.
In my joy of cooking, I have when I got married in 1981, this was the 1978, I think it was, joy of cooking. And in the new joy of cooking, they don't have this. There isn't a possum recipe, but including directions for how to keep your opossum for a week ahead of time, giving it just bread and milk to clean its system out so that the meat tastes good. I have never actually done this, but if anybody's interested, you need to get one of the older versions of the Joy of Cooking, and you can figure out how to keep your opossum for a week and cleanse its system. And then then it tells you how to kill it and eat it. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. But
see,
somebody
that's why there needs to be an occasional video component to the podcast. Because if y'all could see the faces that we're all making at this idea, you would it would brighten your day, because you would be laughing at us or with us. I prefer to think of it as with us. Sometimes it's at us.
Yep.
So, okay. I did look up, it's Mark Kyle from Prep Vet. If you have not listened to that stem cell episode, get ye to the episode, because it is stunning and amazing and magic. And I was stunned and elated to be a part of it. So I think we should vote that every time Clemmy or Zuzu does something completely off the wall, Julie has to come back and tell the stories. Because I don't have stories that can compare with my dog bringing a possum into the house.
Yeah, and that's only the beginning. Clementine, yes, she anyway, I don't have any current Clementine stories, but I do have there was one time we drained the place where our cottage is. We drained the lake so we could do some dredging. And it turns out that in front of a lot of the cottages, it hardened, and people were actually mowing the lake, not in front of our cottage. Apparently, there's a little spring, so it remained rather mucky. So Brad was out there with Clementine one time, and you have to understand, Clementine is white, right? So I texted him and said, hey, is it dry in front of our cottage yet in the lake? And he sent me back this picture, and Clementine is from her chest down, black, totally black mud and white on top, with just the caption, no, it's not. Just totally, she just is the most amazing dirt collection I've ever seen. Anyway, totally black from the waist down, or from the chest down, totally black. So she was not allowed.
That is a happy clumber.
Yeah, very happy clumber. Very happy. Clumbers love to be dirty, but they have an amazing ability, this self-cleaning fur. I don't quite know how it works, except then when I find the pile of dirt in the kitchen, then I know how it works. But
so most people, I think, would immediately go to bathing the dog, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, if you add water, you're just making more dirt. Let them dry. I let them dry in their crates, and then brush the dirt off of them. And if they're still dirty, then bathe them. But people don't know that. People don't know that the oils on their dog's coat makes them all weather. And so dirt will fall off of them if you let it. But
That's-
yeah, lots of people are like, we're going to bathe this dog. And I'm like, you're just going to make a bigger mess.
I don't think I would have thought of that. So there you go. Learning all the time here on your family
Learning
dog
all the
podcast.
time. That's what we do. Zazie was nodding. Do not bathe the dirty dog. Let the dog dry first. Like there was lots of nodding in Zazie land.
Yeah, I don't know how I learned this. Somehow this is something that I was told as a kid. So we didn't have a dog, but it's something I learned as a kid. So, but I actually don't know if it would apply to my current dog because he's a Shih Tzu and his fur is kind of like my hair, and I don't think it would apply to him.
It
But
worked
he
for
doesn't
my
like
Shih
the
Tzu.
mud. Oh, well, maybe it would then, but he doesn't like the mud anyway, so that's all right.
Ah, so
But previous
obviously not.
dogs.
So mine was a retired show dog. Little did he know that he was retiring into a house that was never going to show him. So he took every opportunity possible to get filthy. It was like his favorite thing in the whole world. And then he would look at me like, now how are you going to show me? And I'm like, you don't go to dog shows anymore. Be dirty. So, yeah, it was funny. It was very
We had a Shih Tzu, Bilbo, and he was the best hiking dog we had. The thing that I love about Shih Tzus is that they're small, portable little guys, although he loved chocolate and would climb pianos to eat chocolate. I had chocolate on top of the piano. He climbed on the piano, ate the chocolate, and then vomited it on my white rug. But, be that as it may, they're such sturdy little guys. They're like big dogs in little bodies. And we would go hiking, and I remember this one time, there was this log and I needed him to come across the log and he's like, I don't know. And I'm just like, come on, come to mommy. You can do this. And he looked around and he trotted right across the log. He was the best little hiking dog. I was really impressed with him. So Zazie, do you find that your little Shih Tzu's a sturdy little guy, can do pretty much anything he wants?
No, but he's a senior and he's 14 now. And we got him. He was already a senior. He was 10.
okay.
I don't think he's ever been into doing very much. He would always rather be carried than go for a walk. So sometimes I have to carry him out a bit and put him down and then he'll walk home. He doesn't necessarily want to go out on a walk, especially if it's raining. So, but he is a climbing Shih Tzu. He does climb. So I wonder if all Shih Tzus can do this because we have to be very careful not to leave things on the kitchen counter. We assume that things on the kitchen counter were safe, but it turns out that he can use the settee. He can climb on the settee, jump up onto the settee, jump onto the top of the settee and get from there to the kitchen counter. So we can't leave anything up there. Also, he has been known to try and climb on the cat tree as well. So he likes heights.
Makes it easier to see things.
Yes.
A great vantage point. All right. So Zazie, what's next for you?
What's next for me personally? I do not know actually at this point. The paperback of Bark is coming in June and I'm working on something, but I don't know what will happen with it. So it's just, I don't know.
You're not sure yet?
We'll see what happens.
So will you stick with companion animals or do you think you'll branch out to other species?
That's funny actually, because people keep asking me if I'm going to write about horses, but I am not.
Well, I
don't know
asked you
much
once.
about horses.
I thought it was funny. I thought I was being funny on one of the podcasts you were on. And I asked you at the end if next you were going to write the story, the science of making horses happy. And you gave such a scientist answer. You just acted like I didn't do it. You were like, I don't really know anything about horses. And I was like, wow, I used to think I was funny. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But it's what everyone asks me. And real horsey people ask me. So it's a question I get a lot.
I think we should do guinea pigs or maybe opossums.
Or rabbits. Maybe
or
rabbits. A lot of people have pet rabbits.
Rabbits, that'd be good.
Or bearded dragons or tortoises, like all the things that, I don't know. I will tell you. So, I teach at a store that does have some small animals. We don't have cats or dogs, but we have birds. They have fish, and they have hermit crabs. And I have to tell you, I had no idea the secret life of the hermit crab. It is fascinating. I visit the little boogers every day. They live like over 20 years. They're really fascinating. They're really, really fascinating. So I'm like, oh, good. I can play with their hermit crabs instead of having more to feed. So, Colleen, what's going on with you currently, or what are your plans now that you can be away from your dog for 12 minutes without panic?
Oh, 12 minutes. I'm so many things I have planned for my 12-minute forays. Well, I'm still doing the work I've been doing since leaving the podcast, which is helping pet professionals who worry that they aren't doing enough for the animals and clients that they serve, and also feel like what they're doing already feels exhausting and unsustainable. So I do that with group programs and coaching, and I absolutely adore it because there are so many amazing pet professionals out there who are really doing amazing work in this world and also kind of feeling a little depleted. So I'm going to keep doing that. I love it.
All right. Well, I just have to say to you three, who are three of my most favorite people on the planet, but also to all of our listeners, thank you for a wonderful ride. It's been, I'm gonna go all teary-eyed. It's been a real joy to be of service to you for the past almost decade, and I'm really grateful for our listeners, and I'm grateful for all our wonderful guests, and for my two wonderful co-hosts. And it wouldn't have happened without all of you. And I wish you all the very best. And as we say in the curling world, good curling. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be of service to you.
Thank you for loving the world. And shoving some people who maybe didn't listen to podcasts and had no interest in being on a podcast and whatever would we ever talk about? I don't have anything to offer. Thank you for shoving us in a direction that richly blesses us as much as it's blessed you.
All right. Well, thank you.
We love you.
Well, thank you. I love you all. And like I said, it's been a great ride, and no regrets. But I want to leave before I have regrets. So thank you so much for listening to Your Family Dog. And next time you get All Tina. It's the All Tina review.
Oh, it's the All Tina show. Oh, Colleen's going to have to help me.
Full of excitement, and it's going to be amazing.
It is going to be amazing.
It'll be something. It'll be a surprise to all of us.
And a gift.
Well, so Colleen and Zazie, thank you.
Yes,
When we realized that this was going to be Julie's last episode, it was important to me that it reflected the great love and admiration that we have for her and for what she's created. And I am honored and humbled and a tiny bit terrified of the responsibility moving forward. But I will do my best to uphold the high standards Julie has set.
Well, thank you, Tina. I'm sure you will be great, and I'm sure you will take it to brand new heights, far beyond what I could do. So, anyway, thank you all. It's been a really fun experience, and keep listening, and give us no, not us. Give Tina your feedback now at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.